Welcome to After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out when the sun goes down. The truth comes up. Tonight's story: a woman believed she had married a quiet man, a stable man, a man with no secrets, until one unexpected discovery revealed that her husband wasn't just lying to her, he was living a second life, and the truth behind it would unravel everything she thought she knew about her marriage. This is her story. This story comes from Reddit's relationship advice forum. It was written by a woman in her early 30s, married for 9 years, together for nearly 14. She believed she had a calm marriage, predictable, routine, safe. She had no idea how wrong she was. Here's how she explained it. I'm 34 years old. My husband is 38. We met when I was 20, and he was 24. He was charming, soft-spoken, not flashy, the kind of man who listened more than he talked. I fell in love with how calm he was. We dated for years before getting married. Everyone said we were a good match. Didn't fight much. We didn't party much. We didn't have drama. We were the boring couple. And I liked that. We got married after 5 years together. No huge wedding. Just family. Close friends. Life moved on quietly after that. We both worked full-time. I work in HR. I make around $78,000 a year. My husband said he worked in logistics, operations management, supply chain coordination. I never really understood what he did, but I didn't need to. He made decent money, never complained about work, never brought stress home. We split bills evenly. We shared chores. We talked about having kids someday, but there was never urgency. He always said, let's wait until things feel right. From the outside, our life looked completely normal. Same routines every week. Same grocery store, same coffee place, same walking route in the evenings. He liked routine, and so did I, looking back. That routine hit a lot. The first strange thing happened almost a year ago. At the time, I brushed it off one evening. I was folding laundry in our bedroom. My husband was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. I wasn't snooping. I swear, the screen just lit up. It was a notification, not a name. Just a number and a message preview. Still on for tonight. Same place. I felt a small jolt of confusion. I told myself it was work, logistics, late shipments, night calls. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't say anything. Over the next few weeks, similar messages popped up, always short. Always vague, always numbers instead of names. Still, I said nothing, because I trusted him. Then there were the nights he came home late. Not often, but often enough to notice. He would say work ran long, or a problem needed fixing. I believed him. I never suspected cheating. There were no signs. He didn't hide his phone, didn't change passwords, didn't act distant. If anything, he was extra affectionate. That should have been my first real warning. About 6 months ago, something else changed. His routine shifted. He started showering immediately when he got home before dinner, before sitting down. He said it helped him relax. I believed him. He also started doing his own laundry, which was odd. We had always done it together. He said he didn't want to bother me. I believed him. Every explanation made sense on its own. Together, they formed a pattern I didn't want to see. The moment everything changed came on a random Tuesday. No argument, no suspicion, just bad timing. I came home early from work. Wasn't supposed to. My meeting got canceled last minute. When I opened the front door, I noticed his shoes were gone, which was strange. He should have been home. I walked inside. Called his name, no answer. That's when I heard movement upstairs. I went up slowly, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. The bedroom door was closed. That alone was unusual. I opened it, and what I saw made my stomach drop. His laptop was open on the bed, not to a work dashboard, not to email, but to a website. It was a profile page with photos, not of me, photos of him, taken recently, styled, posed, not casual. There was a username I didn't recognize, and beneath it, description written in first person. I'm discreet, experienced, professional. Available evenings and weekends. My brain refused to process it. I scrolled. There were reviews. Welcome to After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out when the sun goes down. The truth comes up. Tonight's story. A woman believed she was married to a quiet man. A private man. A man who valued routine and stability over drama. For almost a decade. She thought that meant safety. She was wrong. Because one ordinary evening revealed that her husband wasn't just hiding something small. He was living an entirely separate life, and once she started pulling the thread, everything unraveled. This is her story. This story comes from Reddit's relationship advice forum. It was written by a woman in her mid-30s. Married for 9 years. Together for nearly 14. She described her marriage as calm, predictable, almost boring, and she thought boring meant secure. Here is how she explained her life before everything collapsed. I'm 35 years old. My husband is 39. We met when I was 21. He was finishing grad school. I was still figuring out who I was. He was calm, steady, not flashy. I fell in love with how grounded he felt. He felt like the opposite of chaos. We dated for years, before getting married. No breakups. No dramatic fights. No cheating scares. Friends used to joke that we were too normal. I took that as a compliment. We got married after 5 years together. Small wedding. Family only. Nothing extravagant. Life after marriage didn't really change, and that felt reassuring. We both worked full-time. I work in healthcare administration. I make around $80,000 a year. My husband told everyone he worked in consulting, operations, risk assessment, process optimization, the kind of job that sounds important but vague. I never questioned it. He always said confidentiality was a big part of his work. I respected that. He made more than me. At least on paper, he handled most of our finances, savings, investments, retirement accounts. I trusted him completely. Our routines were boring in the best way. Same grocery store every Sunday. Same coffee shop on Saturdays. Same walks after dinner when the weather was nice. We talked about kids someday. But there was never urgency. He always said, let's enjoy what we have first, looking back. That routine hid everything. The first strange thing happened about a year ago. At the time, I dismissed it. One night, his phone buzzed while we were watching TV. The screen lit up on the table. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced over. The message preview said, "Are you still available tonight?" No name. Just a number. I remember feeling confused. Not suspicious. Consulting hours were weird. International clients. Late calls? That's what I told myself. Over the next few months, similar messages appeared. Always short. Always vague. Always numbers. Never names. Sometimes he'd excuse himself to the bathroom to answer. Sometimes he'd step outside. I noticed. But I didn't push, because I trusted him. Then there were the scheduled changes, meetings that ran late, Last-minute travel. Unexpected overnights. Still nothing dramatic. Still nothing concrete. If anything, he became more attentive, more affectionate, more reassuring. That should have scared me more than it did about 6 months ago. Something else changed. He started showering the moment he got home, before dinner. Before sitting down, he said it helped him decompress. Also insisted on doing his own laundry. We had always done it together. He said he didn't want to burden. Each explanation made sense on its own. Together. They formed a pattern I didn't want to see. The moment everything changed happened on a completely ordinary weekday. No argument. No suspicion. Just bad timing. I came home early from work. My afternoon meeting got canceled last minute. I didn't text him. Didn't think I needed to when I opened the front door. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. His shoes weren't by the door, which was strange. He should have been. Home, I called his name. No answer. Then I heard movement upstairs. My heart started pounding. For no clear reason, I walked upstairs slowly. The bedroom door was closed, which never happened. I opened it. His laptop was open on the bed, not to email, not to spreadsheets, but to a website. It was a profile page with photos, professional-looking photos of him, styled, posed, confident, not the man I saw every morning. Half asleep at the kitchen table. There was a username I didn't recognize, and beneath it, a description written in first person. I'm discreet, reliable, experienced, available evenings and weekends. I felt like the room tilted. I scrolled. There were reviews, dates, locations, comments thanking him for professionalism. My hands started shaking. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't an affair. My husband was advertising himself. And I had no idea what I had just walked into. Dates, locations, comments. Thanking him for his time, I felt like I was going to pass out. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't an affair. My husband was advertising himself. And I had no idea what I had just discovered. I stood there for a long time, staring at the screen. My brain refused to connect what I was seeing to the man I married. The photos looked polished. Intentional. Not casual selfies. Someone had taken time to make him look appealing. Confident. Desirable. I scrolled further. There was pricing. Availability. Rules. Boundaries. Rules. That word hit me hard. No emotional involvement. Discretion required. No personal details. Cash preferred. I felt sick. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was organized. Planned. Maintained. I checked the username again. It wasn't a random alias. It was a version of his real name. Close enough to be recognizable. Far enough to stay hidden. I clicked the review section. There were dozens. Some short. Some disturbingly detailed. Very respectful and attentive. Exactly as described. Professional and discreet. Will book again. Dates stretched back years. Not months. Years. I started doing the math in my head. We had been married 9 years. Some of these reviews were dated from our 3rd year of marriage. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down. This wasn't something that started recently. This wasn't a phase. My husband had been living this second life almost as long as I had known him. I heard the front door open downstairs. Panic flooded my body. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart pounding so hard, I thought I might pass out. I barely made it to the bathroom before he called out my name. I answered like everything was normal. My voice sounded wrong to my own ears. Too high. Too tight. He came upstairs. Smiling. Relaxed. Like a man with nothing to hide. watched him carefully. Every movement, every expression, trying to see him differently. He leaned in to kiss me. I almost flinched. That night, I didn't confront him. I couldn't. Needed to understand the full scope of what I had discovered. I lay awake next to him, listening to his breathing, wondering how many lies were sitting between us in the dark. The next day, I did something that still makes me feel ashamed. But at the time, it felt necessary. I waited until he left for work. Then I opened his laptop again, searched his email. There were multiple accounts. Different names, different platforms, different inboxes. Some were for bookings, some were for payments, some were for communication. Only. He had organized it all. Meticulously. Folders, labels, archives. This wasn't impulsive. This was professional. I found messages discussing boundaries. Rates. Repeat. Clients. Travel arrangements. Then I found something worse. Messages where he talked about me. She doesn't know. She thinks I travel for work. As long as I keep it separate, it's fine. I felt something inside me crack. He wasn't just cheating. He was rationalizing it. And I found the payment records. Large transfers. Cash withdrawals. Deposits that never made it into our joint accounts. I compared dates. Every time he claimed to have a big consulting project, there were corresponding bookings. Every time he said he was traveling for work, there were hotel receipts. The consulting job, the vague explanations, the late nights. It all made sense. Now. My entire understanding of our finances shifted. I realized something terrifying. I had no idea how much money he actually made, or where it came from, or what kind of risks he was taking. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about safety. Legality. Exposure. What if someone found out? What if this came back to affect my job? My reputation. Our future children. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed, trying not to panic. I thought about all the times I defended him. All the times I told friends how trustworthy he was. I felt stupid. Betrayed. Angry. Underneath all of that. There was fear. Fear that I didn't actually know who I was married to. That night, when he came home, I watched him eat dinner. Talk about his day. Complain about meetings. Every word felt rehearsed. Every story felt fake. Kept wondering. How many people knew? How many people had seen this side of him. And why. Why he never told me. I decided I couldn't confront him yet. Not without understanding everything. Because something told me. If he could lie this convincingly for years, then the truth was going to be far worse than I imagined. The next morning, I woke up exhausted. I hadn't slept more than an hour. Maybe 2. My body felt heavy. My head was pounding, but underneath the shock and the fear, something else had started to form. Anger. I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't sit across from him at dinner, listening to lies, knowing what I knew. So I waited. I waited until he came home that evening. He walked in like nothing was wrong, smiled, kissed my cheek, asked how my day was. I watched him closely. Every movement suddenly unfamiliar. I said we needed to talk. His expression didn't change. But something in his eyes did. He said, about what? We sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where we had eaten dinner thousands of times, where we had talked about kids, vacations, retirement. I took a breath and said, I came home early yesterday. He nodded. Sighed. Okay, I said. I saw your laptop. He stiffened just slightly. But enough, I said. I saw the website. There it was, the moment where everything could still go one of 2 ways. Truth or lies. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, What website? I felt my chest tighten. I said, Don't do that. Please don't insult me like that. I saw the profile, the photos, the reviews. For a second, he looked genuinely startled, and his face hardened. He said, "You shouldn't have been snooping." That was his first response. Not denial, not explanation. Blame, I said. That's what you're worried about. Not what I found. He sighed heavily, rubbed his face, then said, "It's not what you think." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I said, "What exactly do you think I think?" He hesitated, then said, "It's complicated." I said, "No, it's really not. You're advertising yourself, meeting strangers, taking money while married to me." He snapped back. "I never cheated on you emotionally." That sentence stunned me. I said, "You think that makes this better?" He said, "It's just physical. It doesn't mean anything. It's separate. I keep it separate, separate." That word again. I asked him how long. He didn't answer at first, just stared at the table. I asked again, "How long?" He said, "A few years." My hands started shaking. I said, "Define a few." He whispered. Since before we got married, I felt like the room went silent. Before we got married, which meant every anniversary, every holiday, every promise had been layered on top of a lie. I asked him why. He looked up at me, annoyed, and said, "Because it's just sex. It doesn't affect us." I said, "You risked our health, our safety, our entire future, and you don't think that affects us." He said, "I was careful. I used protection. I screened people." I stood up so fast, my chair scraped loudly across the floor. I said, "Listen to yourself. You're talking like this is a job." "Not a betrayal," he said. "It is a job." It was the moment something inside me broke completely. He explained, calmly, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. He said he liked the control, the validation. He said it made him feel powerful, desired. He said, "It has nothing to do with you." I said, "Everything you do has something to do with me. We're married." He rolled his eyes and said, "You're being dramatic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him if he ever planned to tell me. He said, "No. Why would I?" "You wouldn't understand." That sentence echoed in my head. "You wouldn't understand." I said, "So your plan was just to live like this forever?" He shrugged and said, "It works, doesn't it?" I asked about the money, where it went, how much he made. He hesitated again, then said, "I keep it separate. It's mine." I realized then how little I actually knew about our finances, about his life, about the man sleeping next to me every night. I asked him if anyone else knew. He said, "A few people." That hurt more than I expected. I asked who. He refused to answer. Saeed. It wasn't relevant. The conversation went in circles. Every answer created 10 more questions. Eventually, he stood up and said, "I'm done talking about this. You'll calm down. You always do." That sentence, that assumption that he could destroy my trust, my sense of reality, and I would just calm down. That's when I knew this wasn't just about cheating. This was about who he really was. And whoever that man was, I didn't recognize him anymore. I didn't sleep that night, lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. Every sound in the apartment felt louder than usual. Every creak, every breath. He slept in the bedroom like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just destroyed everything we built. By morning, something in me had shifted. The shock was gone. The fear was still there. But now it was mixed with clarity. I called in sick to work. Couldn't focus on spreadsheets and meetings. Not when my entire life felt like a lie. He acted normal that morning. Made coffee. Asked if I wanted breakfast. Like the conversation from the night before hadn't happened. That calmness scared me more than anger. Would have. As soon as he left the apartment. I went back to his laptop. Not carefully this time. Not hesitantly. I needed to know everything. I went deeper than before. Into folders I hadn't opened. Archived. Emails. Old messages. That's when I found the file. A simple document, named innocently. Schedule. Inside were dates. Times. Locations. Cities. Years worth of entries. Some overlapped with anniversaries. With family holidays. With trips we had taken together. I felt physically ill. I cross-checked the dates. One weekend listed as unavailable. I remembered that weekend clearly. We were at my parents' house, celebrating my father's birthday. I scrolled. There was a booking for the same city. Same hotel. My hands started shaking again. Then I found something worse. Messages between him and someone else. Not a client. Another provider. They talked casually. About safety. About pricing. About avoiding detection. One message stopped me cold. As long as my wife doesn't know. It's clean money. I had to read it 3 times. Clean money. That's what he called it. That was when I realized this wasn't just about sex. This was about power. Control. I kept digging. I found a second bank account, entirely in his name. Statements, going back years. Deposits that didn't match his supposed consulting income. Cash withdrawals. Regular. Transfers. I did rough math on a notepad. Over the years. He had made more money from this secret life than from his actual job. And I had never known. Sat on the floor again. Trying to breathe. Trying to understand how someone could lie this thoroughly. For this long. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from him. Are you still upset? That was it. Not sorry. Not remorseful. Upset. Something inside me snapped. I replied. I know everything. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Finally my phone rang. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Let it go to voicemail. His message was calm. Too calm. Please don't do anything irrational. We can talk about this. I laughed out loud. Irrational. That word told me everything I needed to know. When he came home that evening. I didn't let him speak first. I told him I knew about the schedule. The second bank account. The money. His face changed then. Not fear. Not guilt. Anger. He asked how I found it. I said it didn't matter. He said I had violated his privacy. That was the moment I realized he would never take responsibility. I told him I wanted him to leave. He stared at me. And said, You're overreacting. This doesn't have to end us. I said, It already has. He packed a bag that night. Not in a panic. Not in tears. Methodically. Like this was just another inconvenience. When the door closed behind him. The apartment felt silent. Empty. But for the first time in weeks, could breathe. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how I would rebuild my life. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The man I married never existed. And I was finally done protecting his lies. After he left that night, the apartment felt unfamiliar. Not empty, but exposed. Like the walls had absorbed years of lies and were finally breathing again. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun came up, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head, every time I defended him, every time I trusted him, every time I ignored that quiet voice telling me something wasn't right. The next few days blurred together. He texted constantly, not apologizing, not taking responsibility. Just asking if I had calmed down, if we could talk, if I was ready to be reasonable. That word again, reasonable. I stopped replying. Instead, I focused on gathering everything: screenshots, bank statements, emails, the profile, the reviews, the schedule. I saved everything in multiple places: cloud, external drive, email drafts. Something told me not to trust him. Even now, on the third day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It was a woman. Her voice was calm, professional. She introduced herself as a lawyer. His lawyer. She said he wanted to discuss options, separation, privacy, keeping things civil. That was when it hit me. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of exposure. I told her all communication would go through my attorney. She paused, then said, "Of course." That same afternoon, I called a lawyer of my own. I told her everything, from the messages to the money to the second life. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're not dealing with a confused husband. You're dealing with someone who has been intentionally deceiving you for years." That sentence gave me clarity. Later that evening, he showed up at the apartment, unannounced, standing outside the door like he still belonged there. I didn't let him in. We spoke through the door. He said he missed me, that this didn't have to destroy everything, that couples survive worse. I asked him one question: "Did you ever plan to tell?" There was a long pause. Then he sighed. "No." That was all I needed to hear. He started getting angry after that, said I was ruining his life, that I was being vindictive, that I was exaggerating what happened. I realized then he truly believed he was the victim. He said, "You're acting like I murdered someone. It was just something I did on the side." I told him, "You built a life with me on top of lies. That's not a side thing. That's who you are." He went quiet, then said something that chilled. You're not perfect either." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was desperate. He left after that, slamming the door this time. That night, I slept in our bed for the first time since everything came out, and for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling: relief. The fear was still there. The grief was still there, but the confusion was gone. I knew what I had to do. I filed for divorce later that week. No dramatic announcement. No confrontation. Just paperwork. He tried calling again, left voicemails, switched between anger, guilt, nostalgia. I didn't respond. Friends started finding out. Some were shocked. Some weren't. One friend said quietly, "I always thought something was off." That hurt more than I expected. As the days passed, I started noticing something else. I was lighter. I laughed more easily. I slept better. I stopped walking on eggshells. I realized how much emotional labor I had been carrying, protecting his image, explaining his absences, normalizing his behavior. I wasn't just leaving a marriage. I was reclaiming my reality. And as painful as it was, as humiliating as it felt, I knew one thing for certain. Finding out the truth saved me, even if it destroyed everything I thought I had. A week after everything exploded, I went back to the thread. I hadn't planned to update Dot, but too much had happened, and people were asking questions I finally knew the answers to. Here's what she wrote in her final update. I wasn't sure if I would come back here. But I think it's important to close the loop. The divorce paperwork is filed. My lawyer confirmed that because of the length and scale of his deception, and the hidden income, and the undisclosed accounts. This process is going to be very different from what he expected. He thought secrecy protected him. At DIDN, single quotes D, documented him. The second life, he thought, was separate. Is now the centerpiece of everything. His lawyer tried to negotiate silence, offered quick resolution, asked if I really wanted this dragged out. I said yes, not because I want revenge, but because I want the truth on record. Also found out I wasn't the only one, not the only spouse, not the only person who believed a lie. Other women reached out privately. Both married to men with similar consulting jobs. Both discovered the same platforms, the same language. The same patterns. It made me feel sick, but also validated. This wasn't about me being inadequate. Or inattentive. Or naive. This was about a man who built his identity on deception. My family knows now. Some were shocked, some weren't. My mother cried. My father said something simple. I'm glad you found out now. Not in 20 years. Friends have rallied around me. Some admitted they noticed things, but didn't know how to say it. Others apologized for defending him in the past. As for him, he's still trying to control the narrative, telling people I overreacted, that it was consensual, that it didn't mean anything. But he can't explain the money. Or the years, or the planning, and that silence is louder than anything else. The strangest part of all of this. Is how I feel now. I thought I would be devastated. Broken. Unable to function. Instead. I feel clear. Angry. Yes, grieving. Absolutely. But lighter. Like I've put down something I didn't realize I'd been carrying. If there's one thing I've learned. It's this. If someone can lie comfortably for years, they don't just lie to you. They lie about who they are. And that's not something love can fix. Thank you to everyone who told me to trust my instincts. They were right. The response to her final update was overwhelming. Thousands of comments poured in. Many saying the same thing. One of the top comments read, "You didn't lose a husband. You escaped a performance." Another said, "The most dangerous thing here isn't the cheating. It's the level of organization. This man wasn't impulsive. He was intentional." Someone else wrote, "The fact that you feel relief tells you everything. Your body knew before your mind caught up." A lawyer commented, "Document everything. Silence protects abusers. Truth protects survivors." And one comment kept getting repeated in different ways. "You didn't destroy your marriage. The marriage was never real to begin with." So there you have it. She thought her husband couldn't handle commitment. Turns out, he was committed to a lie. What do you think? Did she do the right thing by ending it immediately? Or should she have tried to salvage something that was built on deception? And what about the second life? Is secrecy ever truly separate from a relationship? Or is it always a ticking clock? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This has been After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out. If you enjoyed this story, the next chronicle drops Wednesday at 10 p.m. It is about a woman who discovered her sister wore a wedding dress to her engagement party. And what happened next will blow your mind. You don't want to miss it. Hit subscribe so the algorithm knows you're part of the After Dark family. And remember, when someone asks you to ignore your instincts, to accept secrecy, or to live with unanswered questions, that's not love asking. That's control. Until next time, stay smart, stay strong, and remember, the truth always comes out after dark.